Phoebe Spengler, you stay inside this car.
I have a ghost to bust.
All right, that was cool.
Carrie, come on.
No, I know, I'm sorry. It's just the way she said it. It sounded cool.
Get back in here! I can't hear you over the nuclear accelerator!
Man, it is wild to me that 40 years after the original Ghostbusters hit theaters, we've got a brand new Ghostbusters movie to talk about. This one is called Frozen Empire, and it's a direct sequel to Afterlife from a few years ago, which I was a fan of. I thought that movie had a great deal of charm. I like the cast that they introduced in that movie, and a lot of that cast is back again here for Frozen Empire, which takes place in the birthplace of the Ghostbusters in New York City. Everybody has transplanted to the city. They're living and working out of the Ghostbusters firehouse, and of course the old legendary Ghostbusters crew is in here as well. Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd and Ernie Hudson, and Annie Potts is back in this as well. And so there's a lot of charm around that, some sort of built-in manufactured charm because we all know these characters. It's totally tapping into our nostalgia. But I think the real story here is that the cast that they picked up for Afterlife is still really, really solid. McKenna Grace is terrific in this. I like Carrie Coon and Paul Rudd's relationship.
Can I tell you something else? What? Buster makes me feel good. It makes me feel good.
Finn Wolfhard's got some nice little moments in here, although he's relegated to a little less central of a role than he had in Afterlife. And I think that's also got to do with everybody having to have a little bit of screen time, and they've also introduced two new key characters, more supporting, but they've got some pretty prominent positions in here. I'm talking about Patton Oswalt, who plays this know-it-all librarian in the movie, who's got some exposition to relay, but he's so charming and so competent in his delivery, and he stands toe-to-toe with Dan Aykroyd, and they've got some good back and forth. But Kumail Nanjiani is terrific in this movie. He is the new addition, and he's kind of in that Rick Moranis territory, you know, this kind of outsider that gets looped into the zaniness of the Ghostbusters, and he is just so fun to watch. He's got some great lines, and he's got, an incredulity to him that he's watching all of this. He can't believe that he's in these moments. We can't believe that he's in these crazy moments, and he's kind of representing the audience in a way, and I really like that. I also like the setup for the film, which is this ancient evil that's coming back to New York City in the middle of summertime, and it's freezing the whole city. There's some really cool effects, but the movie does take a long time to get going. It's a lot of build-up, a lot of exposition, a lot of like, something sinister is coming, and there's introductions of previous cast members and little cameos of actors and things that we have seen in previous Ghostbusters. A lot of that stuff you could predict and expect. Walter Peck, played by William Atherton, even makes a reappearance in this movie, and remember what a foil he was in the original Ghostbusters. I liked all of that stuff, but it also did feel very airy. There was a lot of space, and the audience wasn't really laughing at every kind of attempt at a joke in there. So I think there was just too much effort to kind of play for laughs and build in the gaps for the laughs, and the laughs just weren't coming with any kind of regularity or already pace. There's definitely some good chuckles, there's definitely some good, smile moments in this movie, but the laughs aren't big in this title at all, and that's always a knock that you can throw at Ghostbusters because the original was just hilarious. There was just so much great material in that, and because the movie does take quite a while to get going with its sense of menace and real threat, and there's some other subplots in there where McKenna Grace's character is really trying to find herself, and she goes to some pretty great lengths in that endeavor, and it's an interesting subplot, but in the context of the zippy and zany pace that we've come to expect from the best of Ghostbusters, it does feel a little slow. It does feel a little plodding. And when the big bad reveal does start to hit in New York, because there isn't a lot of screen time left in the movie, we just don't get the epic scale and the escalation that we would hope out of some huge, grand Ghostbusters finale. I mean, you're not going to mistake the ending of this movie for the epic scale of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man from the original movie. There are some really nice character bits and moments in there. It's much more about a family kind of trying to get along with their new reality and face the world as these Ghostbusters, these heroic types that are trying to save the city. Finn Wolfhard's character kind of claims his adulthood and sort of bristles against the family dynamic that Paul Rudd and Carrie Coon's characters are trying to craft for themselves, and McKenna Grace is really trying to understand her position in the family dynamic, and so we spend a lot of time in that space, and I think because of that the movie skews a bit younger, and my daughter, who's 12, we all went together, and she was chuckling quite a bit bit throughout the movie. She was having some pretty good laughs. But I think in total, Afterlife was a more entertaining movie and a better made movie than Frozen Empire. Even though there's some nice bits in here and there's some great character work and there's some nice moments, it might be just a little too airy and nebulous. It doesn't deliver much of the danger, not just in terms of the metaphysical dangers, the ghosts and the bad guys that the original Ghostbusters movie introduced, but also in the idea of we never knew what to expect out of Bill Murray's mouth, you know, and there was kind of this sexual tension that was happening with Sigourney Weaver's character and Rick Moranis and Bill Murray, and there was just a crackle that we just don't get out of this modern Ghostbusters. It does feel much safer and much more developed by committee. And it's not directed by Jason Reitman. He's a producer on this movie, and it's dedicated to Ivan Reitman, who directed the original movie and helped to craft the whole mythology of Ghostbusters. This one is directed by Gol Kenan, who does an okay job. I mean, it looks pretty good. It just needed to be tighter. I feel like we should have gone from joke to joke to joke quicker and not leave space for us to kind of ruminate and to think about what was just said. I didn't mind living with these characters. I didn't mind being with these characters, just hanging around them because they are charming. We did go as a family. My daughter did see it and she was having a pretty good time. I think out of the people around me, at least, she was laughing the most. So I wanted to ask her what she thought about Ghostbusters Frozen Empire.
I really liked it. It was a great movie. It was really fun to watch, and it was like the perfect length, and I didn't want to leave like ever. I wanted to keep watching. Didn't want it to end. It was a good movie, yeah.
Did you like the characters that were introduced? There were new characters this time.
I did. The only thing is that I feel like some of them we didn't get enough information about them. I feel like a lot of them, like, we heard their name maybe once, and so we don't know anything about them, and then they're put in danger.
What did you think about the threats in the movie? Did you feel like it was actually scary and that the characters were in danger?
Yes, but I mean, I'm a kid, so most movies are scary.
What did you think about the visual effects in the movie?
I thought that they were good, but that I think they could have been better. But I feel like that's kind of like the vibe of the Ghostbusters, to make it kind of like look like puppets and like 80s sort of effects. But I think it was pretty good.
What do you think about McKenna Grace as the lead of the movie?
She's great. She's one of my favorite characters, and I like her personality.
What did you think about Finn Wolfhard in the movie?
I thought he was great, but I feel like once you've watched Stranger Things, he's kind of stuck in his personality. Like, he's Mike now, not Trevor Spengler. Like, he's went from Hawkins to New York City, and he's still Mike.
Do you like Paul Rudd as the kind of dad figure in Ghostbusters Frozen Empire?
I do. I feel like he was great at the role. He was giving like the perfect insecure dad vibes.
How do you think this movie compares to Ghostbusters Afterlife?
I think I liked Ghostbusters Afterlife more, but it's hard to say. This one's really good too. I don't know. I just like the other one like the teensy bit more.
There's a bunch of Ghostbusters now with the older guys and the new ones. Who's your favorite Ghostbuster?
Phoebe.
So what are you going to give Ghostbusters Frozen Empire?
I'm going to give Ghostbusters Frozen Empire 9 out of 10.
Thank you, Ruby. Great thoughts. I love hearing from you. And I got to say, watching the movie with my daughter beside me, who was chuckling as much as she was, made the movie much more fun for me. So if you can see this with somebody that is going to love it, I think you're going to have a much better time. I think that the movie is charming, but it's also a little bit toothless, and I'm curious how it's going to stand the test of time, because it certainly is fun to hang out with these characters that do bring you in. You do feel like you just want to hang out in their world a little bit. And I am excited about the possibility of more from the Ghostbusters universe. I just want them to get a little bit more dangerous with how they tell their stories going forward. I'm going to give Ghostbusters Frozen Empire a 7 out of 10.